All right, please take your seats. Thank you. All right. I'd like to call to order this County Board session on Thursday, March 21st at 7:01 p.m. Would you please call the roll?
Harper. Here. Hartke. Here. James.
Here.
Jay.
Here.
Kibler.
Here.
Langenheim.
Here.
Maxwell.
Here.
McGuire.
Here.
Michaels.
Here.
Mitchell.
Here.
Petrie.
Here.
Quisenberry.
Here.
Richards.
Here.
Rosales. Schrader.
Here.
Schwartz.
Here.
Alex.
Here.
Bergson.
Here.
Carter.
Here.
Coert. Esri.
Here.
Kurtz.
Here. All right, we have a quorum. Next will be our prayer. We gather to make decisions for our community. May we use only our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial and neutral as we consider the merits and pitfalls of each matter that is placed before us, and always act in accordance with what is best for our community and our fellow citizens. Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Notice of the meeting, please.
Notice is hereby given that a regular meeting of the County Board, Champaign County, Illinois, will convene on March 21st, 2013, 7 p.m. in the Lyle Shields Meeting Room, Brookins Administrative Center, 1776 East Washington Street, Urbana, Illinois, in said county for the purpose of allowing and ordering payments of claims against the county, receiving and acting upon reports of committees and such other matters may be brought before said meeting, which said meeting shall continue in session from day to day until the completion of said business.
Thank you. I'd like to have a motion for approval of the agenda, please.
So moved.
So by Mr. James, second by Mr. Carter. We have two changes on the agenda, please note. First is number 13.3. The closed session will be canceled for this evening, so please remove it from your agenda. Also, we will be switching on 13.1 and 2, that progression. We'll have the semi-annual review of the closed sessions first, and then the presentation from the Midwest Athletic Conference and Institute. Any other changes to the agenda? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. As you note, we have the date and time of the next regular meetings for the standing committees, committee of the whole, and the county board for your information. We would now like a motion for the consent agenda. So moved by Mr. Esri, second by Mr. Carter. Are there any changes to the consent agenda? Any discussion? All in favor? No. I'm sorry, roll call.
Harper.
Thank you.
Hartke.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Kibler.
Yes.
Langenheim.
Yes.
Maxwell.
Yes.
McGuire.
Yes.
Michaels.
Yes.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Petrie.
Yes.
Quisenberry.
Yes.
Richards.
Yes.
Schrader.
Yes.
Schwartz. Oh, Rosales.
This is the consent agenda, Mr. Rosales.
Schwartz. Alex.
Yes.
Bergson.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Coert.
Yes.
Esri.
Yes.
Kurtz.
Yes, thank you. Public participation is next. Just to note that each of our participants have 5 minutes, and we'll have no longer than an hour, but I don't think we'll have to go that far. First, public participation by Mr. Scott Humphrey. Would you please step to the podium and turn on your microphone, sir?
Thank you. My name is Scott Humphrey. I'm an Urbana resident and graduate student in urban planning. I was here 1 month ago and presented a report that was compiled by a group of graduate students. And I've chosen to return here tonight on my spring break because I think the jail issue is a really important one that we are extremely thoughtful in how we approach. So the snapshot report that that I took part in compiling 1 month ago was about presenting a picture of who is in the Champaign County Jail system at this moment. And we did it on January 26th, and we found basically two important findings. The first one was that we have disproportionate representation of certain groups in our jail system, predominantly men of color from low-income neighborhoods. And we found that there are 4 census tracts in North Champaign-Urbana that have about a quarter of everyone from Champaign County who is in the jail. And there's also strong representation from Southeast Urbana and Northeast downtown Rantoul. And the second key finding was that a majority of the people in the jail are nonviolent offenders. Of the 246 people who were incarcerated, 131 of them were there for nonviolent offenses. And about a fifth of everyone in the jail was there for a traffic violation. So as we kind of wrestle with this question of whether or not to close the downtown jail facility, and if so, whether to expand the satellite facility, I think the answer has to be a strong no, and that is for 2 key reasons. The first of which is that we already have enough capacity at the satellite facility for everyone who needs to be behind bars at a given time. It's about 180 beds there, and if we take that snapshot as roughly approximate of how many violent offenders are in our system on a given day, then we don't need more than 180 beds, because we only have about 100 to 120 people who are incarcerated for violent offenses on a given day. And the second key factor is that we've made a lot of progress in the last 10 years in reducing our jail population. In 2002, this same board was kind of wrestling with the issue of an overcrowded jail system, and there were about 320 people a day being incarcerated then. And in the last 10 years, we've managed to reduce that number by 100. And we've predominantly done that through accelerated disposition at the state attorney's office and electronic monitoring by our county judge and sheriff. And so I think as we look at this issue of maintenance problems at the downtown facilities, that should not be the impetus for building new jail cells. I think we've shown over the last 10 years that we can reduce the jail population through alternatives to incarceration, and I think it's our duty to further build on those efforts, and we'll do so by saving taxpayer dollars without compromising public safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Humphrey. Next is Cullen Holmes.
Colin Holmes. I live in Urbana, 403 West Park Street. I'm here to ask your support.
Could you speak
Yes.
up a little bit, sir?
I'm here to ask your support for a resolution based on 2 successful township referenda items that passed in the last election. This resolution is on the Citizens United Supreme Court decision and focused on corporations' role in our democracy. The referendum, which passed with 72% of the vote in Cunningham Township and the City of Champaign Township, each of them were 72% of the vote, stated that the Supreme Court held in Citizens United versus FEC that corporations have the rights of real human citizens and are entitled to spend unlimited amounts of money in support of political campaigns. To undo that decision, the people of the City of Champaign Township or Cunningham Township support an amendment to the United States Constitution establishing that a corporation does not have the same rights as an actual person, and money is not speech, and therefore regulating political spending is not equivalent to limiting political speech. It also states that we further request that our city, state, and federal representatives enact resolutions and legislation to advance the 2 positions proposed as part of that referendum. So so essentially, I would hope that the County Board would consider at a meeting within the next month to pass such a resolution and advance this item up to the state level where it can be acted upon.
Thank you, sir. Jessica Lewis Watson.
Hi, my name is Jessica Lewis Watson, and I am a member of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and I'm a Champaign resident, born in Urbana and lived in Champaign a long time. And I have schizoaffective disorder, which I've been diagnosed for about 17 years, and I've been on low-income disability from the University of Illinois for about 10 years, and I'm on permanent disability from my schizoaffective disorder mental illness. And I am here to speak today to say that I would like to see monies go to mental illness services at places like Community Elements, where I receive services, because I know that when I get delusions, when I don't have the help I need from mental health services, if I don't get the right medications or the right counseling, the right mental health services, I get delusional with my condition, and then I see or hear voices, and I think God is talking to me. And if I give you an example, sometimes I'm always trying to put good into the world, even if I have delusions. I'm not, trying to harm anybody. But if God tells me it will be good for the universe for me to, say, get a cup of coffee somewhere, and I'm supposed to purchase the coffee, but say God told me to go into the cafe and just take a coffee and leave. Maybe God told me to do that, and I'm in a mental illness delusion. So I might not know at that time in that condition that I'm supposed to pay for the coffee. And I've heard of stories where people, because that's a crime and they have mental illness, they might get taken to jail. And then it's really sad because people like me can do something like that, and I could end up in jail, which I wish I didn't, because I put a lot of good into the world with my painting and, my photography, showing my photography, writing, putting articles in magazines, all over the world, even though I'm not employed professionally. So I contribute to the world, and I like to be able to do this, and I can do this through the mental health services I get that are provided by, funds that go into places like Community Elements, a mental health center in downtown Champaign. So I would just really like to recommend that we have preventative services, that monies go towards helping people before they get into a delusional state where they could maybe commit a crime without knowing it, because they didn't get the services first that would prevent that. And then they're, commit a crime, and then you go to jail. And a lot of times it's like the previous man said a couple people ago, that it's nonviolent. They might not be hurting anybody. They might be doing, what the voices told, good things. The publicity in the newspapers and everything gets that a lot of mentally ill people want to do bad to the world, or maybe their voices tell them to do something bad. But what doesn't get the publicity is people like me, Jessica. I'm just an ordinary citizen, and my voices tell me to do good. So I'm trying to maybe jump in line at the phone booth. I've been known to do that before when there used to be pay phones. I may be pushing my way to the front of the line because God told me to make a phone call to somebody. And I really think I'm doing the right thing and I'm not hurting anybody. But, that may be something you're not supposed to do if you're in your right mind. And then, again, you get taken to jail because you didn't understand and you didn't get the services and medicine and counseling to keep you well with a mental illness before you might do something that puts you in jail, and then you're just, taking up a lot of beds in the jail. So, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. Mr. James Kilgore.
Good evening, James Kilgore, 511 South Draper, Champaign. To follow up on what Jessica Lewis Watson was saying, I wanted to just talk a little bit about the mental health board meeting that was held yesterday that I attended, and I thought it was quite a remarkable event. Actually, it's the first time I think they've had a study session connecting the mental health system to the criminal justice system, and to try to figure out how those two things might work together more effectively. And it's interesting because the part of the discussion began really with presentations by Sergeant Sanders from Urbana Police Department, Sheriff Walsh, and Captain Jones, which really echo what Ms. Watson has just said, that they're repeatedly dealing with people for whom they have no remedy, that there's only three options that they have: hospitalization, and most of the people that that they're encountering are not going to be admitted to the hospital, jail, or do nothing. And so there was quite a I would say consensus that there needs to be some other alternative way to handle these people, and that is putting a huge strain on the policing services, as well as on the jail, as well as on the people who are being incarcerated, rather than being given treatment. And I think, there was an admission, by Peter Tracy, the executive director, that really the mental health board had probably not paid much attention in the past to the adult criminal justice system, and there was a need for them to continue to do that. Sheriff Walsh said that he would estimate that somewhere up to half of the people in the jail are either have issues of substance abuse or mental health. And I just sense it's that actually the police are quite distraught. The Urbana Police Department is saying that they've had double the number of mental health contacts this year that they had last year. So one of the things that came out of the meeting, which I thought was quite interesting, was some discussion about how perhaps the mental health board and the county board could be a little bit more in sync in terms of how they deliver mental health services, or how they link mental health services to criminal justice as a whole. I know we're constantly berating you about the public safety sales tax, but there's also a mental health tax which brings in about $3.5 million a year, and one of the suggestions there was that perhaps the county board and the mental health board could come together in some more formal way and come up with a more systematic approach about how to deal with these problems and make a more effective use of the resources. So there may be the opportunity to actually have some kind of community-based mental health services that could get some kind of funding from the county, but also be able to tap into other kinds of funding resources that might be available that a lot of the service providers currently use at the moment. So I just thought I would like to share those kind of reflections on the meeting yesterday, because I think it's one of the important pieces that the Community Justice Task Force is also working on, looking at possibilities of alternatives to incarceration, focusing on mental health issues, and it seems that the Mental Health Board is now putting that on their agenda. So I hope that there'll be some communication back and forth with the county board, and perhaps a little bit more systematic approach to this can emerge from that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public participation? Yes, sir. Would you have that passed up to us, please? When you present, please present your name, sir.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm Paul Muth, Urbana resident on 207 West Illinois, and I wanted to associate my remarks with Chandler Holmes, talking about the referendum that passed. And I would actually go further and call the county board to look into clean elections and ways of funding the elections so that it isn't the advantage of money, but it's actually the discourse and the ideas that sway people in their votes. And it's been done in places. It's stood some constitutional challenges in some places. Arizona is still being tested, I think. But I think it's extremely important, even at the local level, that we look towards ways of evening the playing field, if you will, and making it so that it's the actual discourse and discussion that sways people, as opposed to campaigns of TV ads, et cetera, et cetera. And I know you have a busy schedule today, so I'll just put a sock in it there. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public participation? This young lady. Yes, ma'am. Have you filled out a... Can I do that after the talk? I apologize. All right. We'll have one filled out for you. Please take a seat. Okay. Fill that out after your participation. Please state your name.
Sure. My name is Akane Freechild. I work for Public Citizen. We advocate for a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United nationwide, and we're currently working with thousands of our members around the state of Illinois to call for a constitutional amendment at the statewide level. It would make Illinois the 12th state to call for a constitutional amendment. But really, this movement has been led by folks like Colin Holmes, who have made folks aware at the local level that Citizens United can affect any race. Local races, county, city races, and cities and counties have been taking action all over the country. This issue is incredibly germane once it happens to you, and I'm glad to hear that it doesn't sound like anything like the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars of outside spending have come to Champaign County, but after Citizens United, there's nothing limiting that kind of spending. For example, in Oklahoma City, there was a developer that had a very unpopular project, so in the city council races, they decided to inject $400,000 in the city council race, which is 10 times what the average city councilor might spend on a race, totally shifting the debate, totally obscuring facts, and making it very difficult for people who really just want to represent the people in their districts to do so and live a normal life and have a campaign that's about talking to their constituents. So I would really urge you to consider this. You've got some great local organizers here. I just met with 6 or 7 other folks before I came here who are very concerned, and I urge you to act. Thank you.
Thank you. Please fill out that
Yes, I apologize.
notice. Thank you. Is there any other public participation? Okay, I'm going to close public participation now for this evening, and we'll move to communications. Do we have communications from the board? Ms. Petrie.
Thank you very much. I have 2. The first one, Mr. Kilgore did a very good job of bringing to your attention the Mental Health Board meeting late yesterday afternoon. I did attend that, and earlier today I did look up the website for the Mental Health Board, and the audio of that meeting is already posted on the website. I do encourage folks to listen to that audio, and I had also requested that the 2 PowerPoint presentations be posted, and maybe that's in the works. But that meeting was extremely educational for all of us in relationship to the jail issue that we're working on. And the second is to remind everybody that Mr. Harkey and I are having a town meeting this coming Sunday, 1 to 2 o'clock at the Champaign Public Library. We have many issues on the horizon here in the county. We would like very much to hear from residents of the county. So it's an open meeting, and we hope a lot of people come and share their thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other communications? Mr. Carter? Turn on your microphone, please. Thank you.
I just want to say I called Mr. Tracy's office 3 times the last week, and he was out of town the first week. So I called him today, but he's gone. So I'm calling him back tomorrow, talking to him about mental health.
Astrid?
Last time you said that we should have board-to-board reports, and I guess everyone wanted to report on the mental health board meeting because it was relevant, and I do suggest that everyone turn it on and listen.
I'd like communication. Oh, we have Mr. Maxwell. Go ahead, Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to report on a former colleague and a dear friend, Stephen Stanley O'Connor, who underwent surgery a week ago Monday. And I did see him today. He is recovering from surgery quite nicely, and I expect that he'll be able to go home before the week's over.
Yes, thank you. I visited him as well. He's looking good. It's great to see him up and about. Where is Steve? He's in Provena. One other sad note. We have this evening a presentation on the Midwest Sports Complex, and it was initiated by two gentlemen, Mr. Rick Pontius and Mr. Bill Pontius. And Mr. Bill Pontius suddenly passed last week, and I want to wish, I'm sure from our board, because I worked with the Pontiuses for many, many years during my franchise days in the restaurant business using their produce, and they're just a wonderful group and wonderful family, and we want to pass on our condolences to the family if that would be okay, sir. Thank you very much. Any other communication from the board? All right, let's move on. I'd like approval of the minutes of February 21st, 2013, and February 28th, 2013. Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Rosales is second. Any changes or additions to these minutes? All right, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. What we have here next are the standing committees and the summary of action taken by the three. There's County Facilities, Environment and Land Use, and Highway and Transportation for your information. We'll move on to areas of responsibility. First up, Policy, Personnel, Appointments. Mr. Quisenberry, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I move the adoption of Resolution Number 8454, adopting the Champaign County Nursing Home Board of Directors Policy Book, and I so move.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this adoption? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Is that it for policy, Mr. Quisenberry? That is all. Let's move on to finance. Mr. Alex.
Mr. Chair, I move adoption of resolution number 8455, payment of claims authorization.
Moved, second by, I'm sorry, I missed it over here. Mr. McGuire? Carter, second. Okay, thank you. Well, Alex moves. McGuire, second. I missed Mr. Carter. Carter, second. Sorry, Mr. McGuire. We'll catch you the next time around. Okay. All right. Any discussion on this resolution? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I move adoption of resolution of 8456, purchases not following the purchasing policy.
Second by Mr. Esri. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, Finance Committee Finance Committee recommends adoption of resolution number 8457, rescinding resolution number 7601, establishing a hiring freeze for Champaign County departments and offices funded through the General Corporate Fund, and I so move.
Second by Mr. McGuire. Caught him that time. Any discussion on this resolution? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All opposed? Well, we have one opposition, Ms. Petrie. Thank you, Ms. Petrie. Got to move a little quicker sometimes. Okay.
Mr. Chair, the Finance Committee recommends adoption of Resolution Number 8458, amending the schedule of authorized positions. And I so move.
Second by Mr. James. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
That concludes Finance.
Well, I'm just waiting, just in case there is a opposition. Ms. Petrie, no opposition. Thank you very much. Okay. Oh, yes, information. Microphone, please. To Mr. Alex.
On the.
Is that finance? Are you talking on?
No, I'm going back to the 3 standing committees. Do
Oh.
we not have to approve, and are their actions final?
There's no action for the board.
There's no action.
Oh, I see, okay.
Okay. All right, to other business,
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Quisenberry.
pursuant to the statutory requirement to conduct a semi-annual review of all closed meeting minutes, I move that the closed meeting minutes of the county board be maintained as closed to protect the public interest or the privacy of individuals, with the exception of the minutes from May 18th, 1993, March 22nd, 2000, August 22nd, 2000, August 31st, 2000, April 17th, 2001, September 16th, 2001, October 16th, 2001, and the set of closed session minutes of May 4th, 2006 concerning potential litigation, which may now be determined as open session minutes.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Mr. Mitchell? Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. All right, let's move to our presentation. Please step forward. We have a couple of other chairs here that we can, you only need 2 of you? Okay, great. What's that? Yeah, let's move out of the way here. Okay. Please hit the microphone and bring it over to you, Laura, please. You have to hand out? Okay. We have a handout coming concerning this athletic complex. Thank you. All right, does everyone have a packet? Everybody have a packet? Okay, great. Please introduce yourself, and we'll get started.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Many of you in the room may recognize me. I'm Laura Huth. I'm with Do Good Consulting, and I'm here as a representative for the Midwest Athletic Complex and Institute. I am joined by Rick Pontius, who is one of the founders, along with his brother Bill, who was mentioned earlier, of this project. And I'm here to present to you today one of the most exciting economic development projects our county is looking at building. Do you want to say a few words before we start?
Well, Mr. Chairman and Board, I'd like to thank you for the, I'd like to thank you for recognizing my brother, and I appreciate it very much.
For those who are not familiar with the Pontius family, they're the Pontius Berry Farm family, and Rick and his wife have operated that for a number of years. Bill owned an excavating company that Rick helped with, and Bill's loss is being felt across the community, but our resolve for getting this project built is redoubled now to make sure that his vision for this facility comes to fruition in our community. So the Midwest Athletic Complex and Institute, what you're seeing on the screen is exactly what you're seeing in your packet before you. The Midwest Athletic Complex and Institute is a facility out in the Clearview subdivision of Champaign, to be built on 160 acres of that property out there, will be an indoor-outdoor regional sports complex. This whole project is going to be a $100 million project. It will be built in 2 phases, the first phase being $40 million indoor project, and the second phase being about $60 million worth of outdoor amenities. We are building this as a public-private partnership, leveraging support from the public as well as private entities. The facility is being set up as both a for-profit and nonprofit entity. I'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. We're going to be offering a very wide range of athletic opportunities for daily tournament usage, as well as for convention scale programs for all ages and abilities. We're talking right now with park districts and school districts for daily functionality for their use. The Champaign School Board right now is talking about a new facility for their central high school, and they're deeply interested in the opportunities that this facility would provide to them in making decisions about the construction that they are facing for that new school. I think most importantly, though, for this board's consideration is that this project is an enormous economic development project for the community that promises a lot of tax growth, job creation, and a lot of new opportunities for our community. So let's take a look. This is, Al, you may need to help point to certain areas up there since I can't interact with the slides, but the location that we're looking at is in the Clearview subdivision. At the top you see our conceptual drawing, and below it is the aerial view. Along the edge, the two interstates join. That's I-57 and I-74, making this a really, really ideal location for a regional complex, drawing families and others from across the Midwest. The Clearview subdivision, as many of you know, has roadways, water and sewer amenities built into it. It's basically shovel-ready out there. We are within also 2.5, 3 hours, depending on whether I'm driving or Rick's driving, of Chicago, Indianapolis, or St. Louis. And these drive times are very attractive for complexes like this. People routinely will drive those distances to come to a facility like this, not only for tournaments, but for after-school practice and other things like that. We've heard from some folks in the Chicago area that a 2.5 hour drive down the interstate isn't a whole lot different than sitting in some bumper-to-bumper traffic trying to get in and out of the Chicago suburbs, and they would much rather drive down 57 to get to a complex like this, looking at the corn that we've got along the way than the bumpers of cars that they're fighting in traffic. By the way, if anyone has questions during the presentation, I assume that that's fine okay. One of the other great advantages of the location for this project are the advantages and growth opportunities that are just down the road. You'll see over in the upper left corner is where we're talking about developing this complex. And right down the road, right down Olympian Drive, you can get to Neal, and then you can, or Prospect, and then you can get to Neal. And there's a wide range of hospitality opportunities there, hotels and motels, restaurants of all sorts, and a host of retail opportunities. These sorts of complexes draw thousands and thousands of people every weekend. And our facility is not going to be any different. We're going to be hosting multiple tournaments on a weekly basis. And we can host, across indoor and outdoor opportunities, 3 or 4 tournaments at a time. We're going to be bringing thousands of people to town, and we'd like to have them stay here overnight, spend their money here, collect that hotel motel tax, spend their money in our restaurants and our stores, and use those funds that we're raising to build a better community here. As you all probably also know, the Olympian Drive area, which is just where those green arrows are going across the page, we have a lot of growth opportunity up in that area, and this project being situated up there will make those lots that have now been standing for sale or for lease for a good long time far, far more attractive for development. So this is much more than just a sports complex. This is an economic development driver for our community. We are looking at this as a tournament scale facility. This isn't just a place to go play basketball or have a ball game, although we can do that. We're looking at drawing in tournaments. Recently we spoke with somebody from Parkland College who was talking about bringing a soccer tournament here not long ago, 420 teams, so many people that they had to start housing people outside of our communities here because they just couldn't house them. That was one soccer tournament, and we're looking at bringing in tournaments like that as well as others on a routine basis. The facility itself is going to be 500,000 square feet under roof when fully built out. We're going to be able to host 500-person plus convention, trade shows, and conferences, something that we can only do right now at Assembly Hall, which at this point, before air conditioning, we can also only do some of the times of the year. This is going to mean increased tourism and community visibility for Champaign, Urbana, and the county. It's going to be a major economic driver with substantial primary, secondary, and tertiary job creation. Millions of dollars over time in new hotel, motel, food and beverage, and sales tax revenues for all of the taxing entities in this area. Major collaboration opportunities with area schools, park districts, and nonprofit organizations. And through the Nonprofit Institute, we're going to be offering a host of wellness, health, and activity-based programs for all people across the entire community. To give you an idea of the type of economic drive we're talking about with this project, we got from the Convention and Visitors Bureau a shocking statistic that athletics generate just about $150 in economic impact per player per day in our community. So if you think back to that 420-team soccer tournament that I was talking about, there's 11 soccer players on any one team, probably 11 more sitting on the bench. And you start multiplying that out by 420 teams, and then you think about the family members that might be in tow. You can start imagining the impact that's going to have on our local economy here. Take, for example, last year, now the 2013 Illinois Marathon is right around the corner, but last year's Illinois Marathon, which is held just one of the weekends, it's really a two-day affair. Most people come into town if they're coming in from out of town for maybe 3 days, generates $10 million in economic impact in our community. That's one weekend of the year for one event. There's 22,000 participants in the marathon. Not all are coming from out of town. But you can start imagining the scale of the economics we're talking about here with a facility like the Midwest Athletic Complex. In the phase one of the construction, which I'll show you here in a minute, which is the indoor portion of the building, it's going to be about 300,000 square foot on initial build. We're talking about having over 350 jobs created just for that initial building. Not a single athlete showing up. This is just for construction, and not just construction jobs, but the indirect and induced jobs that come from that one-year construction timeline. To give you an idea of a project that's local in Rockford that's similar to this project, but not in the same scope, so it's not really a competitive, like a competition to our project. It's called Reclaiming First, and how many square feet is it? 200,000 square foot project. This is a redevelopment project too. They're using an existing building up there. Is going to be creating an estimated almost $20 million in private sector revenue and new annual local tax revenues of almost $2 million in the first 5 years. And then they're also looking at creating over 225 full-time jobs and other associated taxes. This is for a facility that's much smaller than what we're talking about, but is having some tremendous impacts on the Rockford area, which of course is a community that could greatly use that sort of revenue. So here's a closer view of the complex itself. Al, if you can point for me to I-57 and 74 to get the orientation on that map. That's I-57, that's Mattis Avenue, and then I-74 is up towards the top going off the page there. The middle portion where the words Clearview Subdivision show is currently owned by Carle Hospital, who's shown interest in potentially having a project up there that might be collaborative in nature, like physical therapy type services. In the left side of the complex, there, you'll see we are in negotiations right now with a minor league ball franchise. We think this is a great location for a project like this. We're calling that a multi-use field. This is not just for a ball team. This is for the tournament scale of opportunities up there. We're talking, the Champaign School District is very excited to be able to possibly host their kids' baseball games there. So this would be able to be used throughout the year, maybe not in the winter months, although it will be turf, so we will be able to rent it out as much as possible. You'll see also then between the ball field and to the right, we've got a hotel development in there. We're looking at 200 to 500 rooms for the hotel. We've got about 4 different hotel operators that we're talking with right now. And then next to that is the indoor complex. I'll show you some sketches of that in a minute. We also have retail and restaurant outlet opportunities. And then the big orange block that you see there is St. Thomas More that's existing. And then surrounding them are about 100 or plus acres of outdoor fields built on a tournament scale. Those would be turf fields, the AstroTurf or fake turf fields. St. Thomas More is very excited about having this in their backyard, having these world-class opportunities right around them. And furthermore, the Champaign School District is looking at the parcel of property that has the North logo in it, right near where Al's sitting. There you go. They're looking at that piece of land as their possible new high school, which would make the amenities being right across the street, I-57 being that street, very useful to them. And of course, Parkland College, too, is right down the road, and they're very supportive of this project as well, seeing a number of athletic and educational opportunities, including having their graduation ceremonies there. So for the outdoor features, we're looking at the turf for all-weather usability. The only thing that'll keep athletes off the field would be lightning. Otherwise, we've seen them at other complexes playing in rain so hard it's hard to see what's going on. They managed to do it, but lightning is the only thing that'll keep them off the field here. We have all the areas are lit for maximum usage. There are no housing conflicts in this area, and there aren't planned to be any housing conflicts either. We're going to be covering the entire area with walking, multi-purpose, and cross-country paths. We want to do that not only to be able to host cross-country meets up there, but we'd like to engage the rest of the visitors there, the ones who aren't the athletes playing, in outdoor activities that involve them not just being buried in their devices or in front of video games, but being outside and engaging in healthy lifestyles. We're going to be also hosting different playground areas, covered pavilions to make for nice family hosting, and plenty of parking up in that area. We have also already talked to and gotten support from the Mass Transit District for full service up there. For the indoor facility on full build-out, we're talking about 500,000 square feet that will be suitable for not only athletics, but also trade shows, conferences, and meetings. We're choosing flooring so it can have maximum conversion. The hard court and turf areas will be convertible for all types of different spaces, larger courts, smaller courts, the convention space. The areas are divided largely by curtains that roll up into the ceiling, making a click of a button that can transform the space in just minutes. We're going to also, hopefully on full build-out, if we can find the funding for it, have an aquatics area, a 50-meter pool. We're getting great demand for that. We'd love to see the money following that demand, so we're going to continue to work on that. And we're also going to be talking with some concession managers already about offering some of the concessions up there. There's already interest in that. So here's a look at what the indoor facility looks like. The blue area that's in the lower left corner is the phase 1 build out of the 300,000 square feet. Not all types of areas show in this. For example, the baseball fields that you see there, there's the little like peanut league courts, or fields rather. There's 6 of those, but then the adult size fields can be converted easily to be played in there. There's also around that whole area, those 6 baseball fields, going to be a 200-meter track, which you can't see in this drawing. But there's going to be a lot of different uses going on in this building. The full build-out is the entire area that you see there, and in the end, that'll be 500,000 square feet. So this is a concept drawing. This is not the architectural drawing. So in the end, what you see, like with the natatorium, the swimming area, will depend on the funding that comes in for those areas. Rick and Bill are very brilliant men, but they did not invent this concept. These sorts of complexes are popular all over the United States and even in other countries. I show you two here of interest. The lower one is Eastside Center in East Peoria, which, has anybody here been to Eastside Center in East Peoria? Okay, at least one. With your kids in tow? No? No? Okay. The facility is great, but they're landlocked, so they can't grow. So they are only able to host certain size tournaments, which we're going to be hosting tournaments of a much, much larger scale. The gentleman who runs that facility, whose name I can't remember, Tim, has said he gets calls all the time for tournaments he can't host, and he's more than willing to work with us to accommodate those uses. He'd like nothing more than to make sure that those tournaments stay in Illinois, and we'll be sending them down I-74 to us. Up at the top is Spire Institute. It's in a community called Geneva, Ohio. Has anyone here been to or heard of Geneva, Ohio? Not surprising, since it's a town of only 6,500 people. It's in the middle of Ohio, and they have built a facility there that is 800,000 square feet under roof and on 300 plus acres. They're in their 5th expansion due to demand for their facility. And they've got a similar situation in that they're equidistant between 4 large major metropolitan areas, which are
Cleveland, Erie, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, and Columbus.
They are routinely seeing traffic on a daily basis from these large metropolitan areas coming to their facility, even for daily usage, let alone the weekend usage, which is most common. They are in their 5th expansion. They've moved into doing a lot more educational work now in that expansion, and we are aspiring to be like the Spire Institute. In fact, we've gotten strong interest from the individual who was basically the creator of this facility. His name is Jeff Orloff. Has expressed interest in our facility as perhaps his next project to work on. So we're very excited about that. This institute here, the Spire Institute, most recently hosted the Big Ten track and field tournament. So this is a fairly large and high-profile opportunity for them, and that's part of the reason we aspire to be like Spire Institute. We'd like to be able to see those sorts of things coming to our community here. So in the last year or so, we've been engaged in a lot of meetings bringing this idea around town, and we've been forming a lot of different collaborations and getting a lot of letters of support. So we've been having discussions with the school and park districts, the University of Illinois, our CVB, all manner of state and elected officials, healthcare entities, and so forth. And we've started to collect an impressive array of letters of support for the project, from our local school districts to our local communities to elected officials on both sides of the aisle, as well as some local businesses. Now, one that just came in literally as I was walking out the door to come to this meeting was the Don Moyer Boys and Girls Club, who sees some fantastic after-school and summertime opportunities for their programs. So they stand in full support of the project as well. Our funding model is still being developed for this, but what we can say is that it's a diverse public-private partnership. We are going after private and equity investors for the project. We're also pursuing federal, state, and local opportunities. Now, we know that nobody has big wads of money sitting around, so we are looking at creative financing options, bonds, tax rebates, and other creative revenue capture opportunities. We are also pursuing agency grants and loans, and while those aren't as plentiful as they used to be, there are some funds available for projects like this based on tourism, based on healthy living activities, green building, things like that. We're also seeking bank loans. We've been before a number of banks. We'd love to get our local banks involved in the project. We have made a presentation to the Community Development Corporation, who's very excited by the project as well. We are also seeking sponsorships and donations. We've got a couple of sponsors that we're in sponsor discussions we're in right now. And then we'll be seeking foundation grants once we get our finalized 501c3 status from the IRS, which is expected in just a few months. So our timeline for this project, ideally, would be to break ground later this fall in 2013. This will be completely funding dependent, so this would be our best case scenario. The building timeline is 1 year. So no matter when we start, it'll be about a year to build. And when ideally, we'd love to have the facility have a ribbon cutting for the facility in fall of 2014. And I know that Rick's eager to have a sign up with a dedication to his brother when that happens. So our next steps are to continue to secure the financing for the project through private investors, equity investors, bank loans, and grants. And that's what our next steps moving out for this project are going to be. We just wanted to come here today mainly to inform the board of this project coming to town and let you know about what Champaign has called probably the largest economic development project they've seen and worked on in a while.
Thank you very much, Laura. First, let me explain that we've looked into this program, and this is all within the 1.5 miles. This will not have any effect on the unincorporated areas. I want you to understand that. So we will not have any oversight. This will all be the city of Champaign. My first question, and then I would ask, Mattis Avenue will border this. Now, right in that area, Mattis Avenue needs to be a heck of a lot bigger to carry this type of traffic. What is the city of Champaign planning on that?
They've moved up their timeline for improvements to that road. That's a great question. Thank you.
Okay. From the board, please. Mr. Keebler had his hand up first, then Mr. Carter, then Ms. Bergson.
Kibler, thanks.
Yes, did I say Keebler?
You said Keebler again.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Hu,
I
thank you
did.
very much. Actually, you almost, Mr. Kurtz, went on to something. I was asked really two questions. One, it looks like it's the vast majority of it is in the city of Champaign right now. Is the idea to annex the rest of it by the city of Champaign? Because there is, okay, so that is basically what they're going to do no matter what.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think the city's intent was for that to come into the city anyway. And once those fields, the fields area you're talking about, right?
That's
not,
correct.
Yeah.
The fields are what's
yeah,
not in
we
there.
would want those annexed into the city. Oh, okay. So the land agreement with the Atkins Group, who owns the land, is for that to happen.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was kind of talking to my grandsons. You know, Champaign, this month used to be a joyful month in this town. We used to have all these teams, Rockford, and we would even leave work early sometimes to get home, you know, to get into the ball game. Champaign used to be a fun place. It did. And we used to have all these teams here. Rockford, Elgin, I could do Salmo, I just go back. And what was so joyous about it, some of the guys that I went to school with had families in Chicago, and the kids was coming down here. And we had elk clubs, nice places for them to go. It was enjoyable.
Yep.
And how we lost that, I don't know.
Well, we're here to bring it back to you tonight.
You know what? This brings back a memory.
I'm glad. Hopefully we can bring it back to reality and we can see you at the groundbreaking.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Astrid?
Haven't most of the professional teams gotten rid of artificial turf because of the injuries to the athletes?
No, they're modifying the artificial turf in order to address those issues. But it is something that the NFL teams, other teams have been looking at very hard.
Diane?
Well, I think it's a great idea, but it really does affect areas outside of Champaign-Urbana, because living in the Rantoul area, we have the football camp, we have soccer tournaments and camps. We also have softball tournaments up there, and they're very, very, very well attended. So I would hope that this would not take away from our side of the county, if you will, and maybe enhance. And that would be something I would strongly suggest as you work with the Village of Rantoul on the things up there, because for us, we would hate to lose that. That would be huge for us to lose any of that.
Yeah, we're not interested in rating any of the current things that are going on here with the park districts or Soccer Planet or anything. We're looking at new opportunities, bringing in families from across
But
the
it does
Midwest
happen.
to-
It does happen,
for larger tournaments than I think that anyone around here currently can handle, so new opportunities.
Rachel?
You mentioned that it's going to be somewhat of a hybrid between for-profit and not-for-profit. Can you explain how that works?
It's just one set up as an LLC right now, and one set up as a not-for-profit organization. We're still seeking the 501c3 status. Hybrid operations are becoming more and more common. The organizations work together collaboratively. There's no legal link between them. As far as the government's concerned, but the organization will be operating programs out of the facilities, but the facilities themselves will most likely be owned by the LLC.
Does it have any effect on the tax situation?
No, in this setup, it wouldn't have, what I just described, it would not have an impact because the programs would just be run from the facility, like a rental type setup.
Thank you. Ralph?
I noticed you're contemplating a bond issue.
We are discussing all options.
Well, I would find it very difficult to persuade my constituents who live in Urbana and Savoy to support a bond issue, pay taxes to support this operation.
Jeff, you were next. You want to go, Mr. Rosales? Geraldo, go ahead.
How far is this location from the Anderson Group?
I'm sorry, what was that question?
The Anderson plant group that is basically processing corn?
It's nowhere
There's nothing
close.
going on there.
About 2 miles away from there.
2 miles west of this location?
Yes. East of.
We're east. We're east of the Andersons.
All right, all right.
The reason I ask that is because I know that when we were on city council, we approved an ethanol plant. And I was looking at the effects of processing ethanol on that site. And most of the fields that we're creating here are outside fields. So I was seeing the effect or what complications that would have on this project.
I think it's too far away. I don't know what the studies, but it's at least 2 miles down the road.
Okay, Jeff?
I think I'm just going to mostly focus on the convention aspect of this. From a technology perspective, we've been overlooked many a times, and we've had the inability to bring in high-quality technology conferences to this area. You say 500 plus. Can you give me a more roundabout number? And then is it you talking 1,000? Because 1,000 is more than 500.
Yeah,
Are you talking
all
1,500?
of those spaces that you see in there, most of those spaces, the walls can be removed to create a space of whatever size you need.
Okay, but is there a limit? Is there like a firefighter's limit on how
Right.
big this can be?
We've not gotten to that discussion with the architects and.
Okay.
Tell us how many noses you need us to accommodate, and I can.
Well,
try
I'll
to-
just give you some perspective. In South Carolina, where there is basically, sorry for those in South Carolina, but no real major technology sources. They have, in Columbia, an event that started off with 300 people. Within 3 or 4 years, it's now at 600 or 700, and they are maxing out because they have no space. They have no convention space. And there are several technologies that we could try to bring here, whether it's biomed or software or whatnot, that needs a space like this. But we've been unable, or I've been unable to, working with others to find a suitable space if we found such an event, or I don't want to start building something and then have it die out because there's no space for it. So that is a concern. I think getting at least to the 1,000 mark would be beneficial as a good first start. And then secondly, hotel space, you said 200 to 500, that's a wide range. And if you want people coming in from, especially from the tech sector, you're only going to get maybe 50 to 100 to maybe 200 participants locally. The rest are going to come from out of town. They're going to need hotel space, and they usually want it right on premise. So I'm curious to know if you're leaning more towards the 200 or the 500 with that hotel.
That's, that's really out of our purview. That's more of the hotel developers'
It's a
purview.
private development.
So that's the aspect that's going to be completely private. Okay.
Yes.
But we're in discussions with them, and we have some opportunity to say yes or no to some of the developers.
Some of the development, right.
I mean, I would personally like to build it much larger, and the larger end to accommodate what I can see is gonna be, major demand for that, but that'll be, I think, part of the hotel, their decision on what they move forward with.
Part of it is their study once they decide that this is the property they want. Then
Okay.
Then they'll determine based on that.
And then finally, is there going to be any sort of, I assume you've been working with the airport or other sort of mass transit groups to help shuttle people from
Yes.
said location? Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, we've met with Bill Volk from the MTD. He said, absolutely, whatever you need out there, we'll get it. We also want to we talked with Alan Nudo from, who's on the Willard Steering Committee, about having discussion about what the positive impact this project would have on helping to revitalize Willard Airport.
Josh?
Yeah, I love it when Jeff and I get to be in complete agreement here. From my time both at IDOT and when I was at the University of Illinois, getting convention space is a huge drawback for a community of our size, of our technological advancement with the university, with Carl. I agree with him that the numbers should be on a high end. And not just technological issues. I'm a writer, and I go to a lot of book conventions and things like that. And I'll give an example of this Gen Con that I go to in Indianapolis that started with 2,000 people 40 years ago, and now gets almost 250,000 in its 4 days. I don't think we have hopes of hitting that number, but these things can grow, as Jeff said, and I would really like us to be very forward-thinking, since we're investing in this from the beginning, to look at that. I think this is very much needed by the community. I'd love to see it go green. And also a question on the non-for-profit issue. You mentioned the Boys and Girls Club, but groups like the Boy Scouts and other, just as a simple example, but many other local groups will be able to use this for kids to play ball and stuff at no or no cost, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
I think it's great. Thank you.
Okay, Gary?
Thank you. Ms. Huth, you may have partially answered my question, but not entirely. What entity will own this complex, manage and operate it? And how will future maintenance, and who will pay for the future maintenance of this complex?
Great questions. It, for now, will be owned by the Midwest Athletic Complex. It's an LLC. The primary holder is Rick Pontius at this point. We are looking for investors in the facility and building those relationships, so we wouldn't mind bringing on a team to own it. In terms of managing it, I did a little bit address that in the presentation. We have had some interest from Jeff Orloff from the facility in Ohio to manage the facility. We're also looking at local options for management as well. We haven't made any decisions in that regard, but we're pretty happy that Jeff Orloff and his stature in the community of people who build things like this is interested in our facility. That tells us that there seems to be a lot of promise for what we're conceptualizing here, and that our location is right. And then your last question was about ongoing maintenance and the cost. We're working on the financials right now. The facility, as imagined, should be self-supporting. So the tournament revenues that come in will be paying to operate the facility. On the nonprofit side, we'll be seeking continual grants and donations so that we can have the facility available for community use for like Boy Scout groups and the Boys and Girls Club.
Thank you. Is there any other, Mr. Carter? Microphone.
That means that someday maybe we be able to bid on the Little World Series.
Maybe. Maybe.
Well, that's what I'm saying, George. We used to enjoy, all the teams used to come down here at Champaign. Yeah. All over the state. And it was a wonderful week, I'm telling you. And we lost that.
We're here to bring it back.
Right. Well, I hope we can raise some teams that can participate in it.
If you build it, they will come, right? Isn't that what they say?
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Any further, Mr. John?
Just kind of a general question. I know you said you're working on the exact detail and numbers, but a $100 million complex, I'm curious, what percentage of that would it take to maintain it every year?
I don't have that answer for you right now, but we'll get get one.
Yeah, can we get that answer, and I'll send it to Mr.
Just-
Kurtz, and then you can distribute it to the board?
Absolutely, that'd be
Okay.
fine, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions? Thank you, Laura.
Thank
and
you all so much for
thank
the
you, Rick.
opportunity.
Thank
It's
you.
nice to see you again.
Nice seeing you.
Take care. All right.